This is your World War III update. Pardon in advance my sluggish demeanor and delivery today. I'm a little under the weather, but the show must go on, brain fog or not. If we can't do this during peacetime, how the hell are we going to do it during wartime? Now, I received a message today from somebody who works high up in a U.S. hospital, and they're telling me that hospitals are getting ready for mass casualty events. Now, this would corroborate with what we are seeing coming out of Europe, where they're preparing for something similar. And I'm going to read you the email that has been rearranged, and I'll be speaking in generalities because I want to preserve this individual's anonymity. I also want to talk about what's going on with the conversation around Ukraine and the delivery of nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles. In the last few days, we've heard Trump, Vance, and the Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, talk about this. And once they're talking about it, once there's a debate about it, whether or not it happens immediately or not, it's a subtle nudge in that direction, priming people to get ready for this. And it's also being used, I think, as signaling to Russia that there is a willingness there to take things to the next level. Of course, if a Tomahawk missile falls on the Kremlin, you can bet that somebody's getting a million-degree suntan. I don't know where they're going to put it, but I have a sneaking suspicion it might be outside of Europe. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the increased stratotanker activity that has been detected in and around Europe, a real heightened sense of intelligence and recon being conducted around Kaliningrad. So something big is cooking here. We just don't know where things are going to jump off. Is it going to be Iran? Because remember, these guys like to misdirect. So if you're seeing a bunch of stratotankers in Europe, it easily could be preparation for something in Iran. If you're seeing, increased activity in the Indo-Pacific, then for all we know, just like when they attacked Iran the first time, they had all those stealth bombers fly out in that direction to make it appear as though they were doing something else when really, the other hand was doing something else. So we'll talk about all the data and events, but first I want to share this story with you because I think it's quite pertinent. Now, again, I have to speak rather ambiguously because I don't want this individual to be identified, even though the information they're providing is really not classified information. And it's no different than the info that's coming out of both France and Germany, as well as several other European countries that signals they too are getting prepared to expand their adaptive capacity and develop their capability to deal with mass casualty events, presumably as a consequence of a large-scale war between Russia and Europe. So this individual works in a senior position in a major U.S. medical institution. Okay, so this is no bullshit. According to them, they have not received anything like this. Is unprecedented with the exception of COVID, when the government was trying to figure out how to triage patients. They said that email states that they need to be ready in the next 1 to 5 years to take on mass casualty events. So 1 to 5 years. But they suspect that the timeline is being overly optimistic and that they're really kind of just sussing out to see what the current adaptive capacity is. So there's a hospital's capacity, then there's their surge capacity and absorptive capacity, which is supposed to be, you could put a certain amount of beds in hallways or in the cafeteria or wherever. And so that's how many, in an emergency, how many patients could that hospital take? That's really the question. So it could be that they're trying to mitigate potential panic by saying 1 to 5 years. And of course, this would make logical sense, that you're always going to likely to make sure that this message is not triggering mass hysteria. You would want to extend those timelines a bit. I'm sure, I used to do social psychology stuff, and there's certain numbers or certain gradations of increases in sums that you don't notice. So, for example, maybe 3 years, people psychologically don't get too spooked by that. But if you tell them anything under a year, then that might trigger some sort of response, which might be disruptive. So, yeah, it's very possible that when they say 1 to 5 years, I would lean towards the 1 in the very least. So this basically took the form of a government readiness survey asking major hospitals if they can receive mass casualties. Now, I've heard of I get messages all the time from people who work, in their city councils, or, they work in some capacity in emergency management planning in their city. And many of these cities are starting to get prepared for these big events. So it's not just something that's limited to hospitals. This is taking place all across the United States, but of course it's happening under the radar. So we can speculate that this has something to do with foreign conflicts, possibly even domestic instability, civil unrest, but there's no real firm attribution to any given event that they're alluding to here. They're just speaking generalities. They need to have preparedness for mass casualty events. The adaptive capacity of hospitals is abysmal, and typically it wouldn't even be enough to, like, if there was an actual full-blown nuclear exchange, you're on your own. So that is why you need to have your own emergency medical kit and training, advanced first aid in the very least. There's a lot of things I would recommend. There's courses that you can take. We have a friend of the channel, Dr. Timothy Chan, who provides a course on advanced first aid administration. Dr. Joe and Amy Alton have wrote the Survival Medicine Handbook, which is an absolute must for every prepper, because that's going to give you advice on what you can do for a variety of more extreme ailments when help is not coming. And of course, I always recommend people pick up their Jace medical kit, which includes antibiotics, because that's going to be a game changer. If you just have antibiotics as one of your staples in your preparedness kit, that's going to be such a huge game changer, because there's so many things that you can just die from just from an infection. So if you have that sorted out, if you can stop the bleed and you can manage infections, that's a big part of just staying alive through a lot of these situations. So I might have to blow out some snot halfway through this video. Anyways, so we got U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg saying that, oh yeah, and if you guys want those prescription medications, go through the link in the description and help support the channel. U.S. Keith Kellogg is saying that President Trump has likely approved Ukrainian long-range strikes inside Russia. Okay. To me, this is just like, it's Monday, right? I mean, I've been saying this since day one. This is going to get out of hand in a way that most people hadn't anticipated. But I've been telling you since day one, Trump is the World War III president, and here we go. Tomorrow, he's going to be meeting with all of the generals, right? All right, so you have Rubio, Trump, Vance, and Kellogg all talking about no sanctuaries inside Russia. So nothing's off limits. Now, Ukraine still needs approval. They're saying it's presidential approval, but I'm pretty sure that the president is so busy that he's not picking targets. He's delegating that to somebody else. And so, who knows what targets are being selected and on the basis of what. Tomahawk deliveries are under consideration. The Kremlin says they wouldn't change the war, but would imply direct U.S. involvement. And of course, these, like the F-16s, are nuclear capable. So we're seeing this insidious mission creep towards normalizing the use of nuclear capable weapon systems at longer and longer ranges inside Russia. And while this is all happening, while the Russians are, getting used to fighting F-16s and now possibly Tomahawks and other nuclear capable delivery systems, they have to be on a much higher state of nuclear readiness, because even though They probably know there's a 90% chance that the US is not going to use a nuclear weapon on them. They must always assume that, because it might just be a conventional warhead now. It might just be an exercise, especially in light of widespread exercises that are ongoing in the region. And now you have this NATO Eastern Sentry program, which acts as a convenient smokescreen for a potential jump-off point for a decapitation strike. The Russians have to be exceptionally careful. And they're going to be threading needles from this point forward with respect to how they navigate this situation. So the Tomahawk would be a ground-launched cruise missile, and they could be actually delivered by a variety of different mechanisms that the Ukrainians already have in their disposal. It is only capable of launching one missile at a time, but with a range of 1,600 kilometers. And I believe they can be deployed by, I'm not sure what the type of vehicle is, but regardless, it doesn't look good. So that's already in the discourse, so I would not be surprised if we're not months away from actual Tomahawk deliveries. Transatlantic movements, we have dozens of USAF KC-135 tankers headed towards Europe. This could be rotational, could be NATO reinforcement based, or it could be operational, getting ready for something big. NBC is reporting that the US is preparing major airstrikes across Venezuela on cartel infrastructure. As some of you know, Trump proposed a deal today. They're calling it a big deal between Israel and Hamas. However, Hamas later chimed in and said, we haven't seen this deal. So, you know, this is one final grandstand of Israel and the United States to make it look like they're brokers of peace, good faith brokers of peace. And when Hamas rejects the deal, that's when they're going to, you know, just go berserk, I suspect. And this is part of the reason why they now have expanded their THAAD launchers from 6 up to 10. So there's 4 more THAAD launchers. These are the launchers that they use to intercept the ballistic missiles from Iran. Okay, this is the world's arguably one of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world. They're in very limited supply, and the ammo is even in shorter supply. So that's big news. China just did an ICBM missile test. Afghanistan had a nationwide blackout. I believe it might have been self-imposed. Nationwide internet cut to 14% of normal after Taliban orders shut down markets. Foreign investors are more allocated to U.S. stocks than at any other point in history. Gold and silver, new record highs once again today. What a surprise. Zelensky is touting a $90 billion weapons package, which might include Tomahawks as well. Long fuel lines continue inside Russia in a variety of places across Russia, including Crimea. We have the USS Gerald R. Ford in Norway for exercises. Heavy NATO ISR and tankers over the Baltic, Kaliningrad, and the eastern flank. Germany is running Red Storm, Bravo, rapid deployment drills in Hamburg, but I believe those have concluded today. Denmark EU summit on security is going to be escorted by France, Germany, and Sweden, who are sending troops and radars and anti-drone units in order to defend against possible drone incursions by the Russians. Ukraine is getting more F-16s as well as Mirage and Gripen. I believe the Mirage are potentially nuclear capable as well, but don't quote me. Actually, no, I think that was the Rafale planes from France. They're getting more of those. Medvedev today made another threat to Europe about weapons of mass destruction escalation. The envoy to Ukraine had said that Trump had authorized long-range Ukrainian strikes into Russia, though the Pentagon has sometimes withheld execution authority. So there's that delegation once again. Zelensky is calling for the targeting of Russia's shadow fleet in the Baltic, a no-sail zone, alleges links to drone attacks on Denmark and Norway despite no official attribution or evidence. And Romania is planning to reintroduce 4-month military service. So they're going to start rolling out the draft all over the place. This one I'm going to probably have to do a special video on. It's Cold War bunkers. Mines and mountains are being repurposed as ultra-secure data centers for the new gold, which is data. I got to go and talk with Professor Zhang. I believe I'm pronouncing it right. Geez, it's going to be a long interview. It's going to be a tough one because this guy's really smart. You guys probably seen some of his videos, Professor Zhang, and he talks about game theory and how it effectively is used as an explanatory model for the global crises that we see unfolding right now. Anyways, guys, I gotta go. See you on the flip side.